If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. There's been reports of a blasphemy wandering around in Alamigo. They've sent out soldiers to find the thing and deal with it, but since blasphemies aren't exactly pushovers, the Alamegans are expecting a lot of people to get hurt. Unfortunately, most of their healers have been stationed in other places, so they're hoping to get some help from skilled healers from outside of their borders, and the number one person on their list is the Warrior of Light. Since she's an accomplished healer and pretty good friends with the people working to restore the nation, she agrees to do just that. So she heads over to talk to a man who she hasn't seen in a while, and that's Rauban. He's happy to see you and he would normally like to hear about all of the weird stuff you've done since you were last together, but there's more important things to worry about at the moment, so that'll have to wait. When the blasphemy first appeared in the city, the guard got most of the people away with only a few injuries, but the blasphemy escaped and they haven't seen it since, which is bad since having one of the creatures around tends to cause other people to transform. A lot of people saw the man change, but no one knew who he was, so that won't really help you all track the thing down. But whatever caused the man to give in to despair and turn is likely to cause more people to do the same, which makes Rauban think that figuring that out will be the best way to go forward. While you're working on stopping people from turning, the ones who do turn have to be put down. Rauban wants you to join the teams that are hunting the things and make sure his men don't die. Of course you'll do it since that's why you're there, and it turns out not long ago a call came in saying that some of the things were spotted outside of Alagana. The troops have dealt with them already, but they need some healing, so you head out there to get to work. The Alamegans have a serious shortage of healers, so having you along to fix people up is a serious help. Once you've made sure the soldiers won't bleed out, you meet up with Rauban, who's working with an old friend of yours who you haven't seen in a while, Arnvald. He's still paralyzed, but that hasn't stopped him from working with a new group of do-gooders, which is why he's out in Alamigo in the first place. But before he could get started with his own mission, the whole blasphemy thing started. The old man Ragnfrid saw some of the people who had changed into monsters, and they were some of the very people that he was trying to help. After Lisa's meeting in the royal palace where she started working on bringing the people of Alamigo together, things started to improve in the area, but a lot of people were still struggling to rebuild their lives after everything that had happened. So Ragnfrid had started a group called the Silver Griffins, who would work to help the Alamegans who had joined the Empire rejoin the rest of Alamigo and start their lives over. The main people they were trying to help were the remaining members of the Skulls and their family. Ragnfrid and pretty much everyone else still hates them for what they did, but after seeing how Fordola protected them from the Primal then submitted to their punishment without fighting back, he started to try and understand what made Fordola and the others join the Empire. The answer was obvious once he thought about it. They had been through the same trauma as every other Alamegan, and they decided that the best way to help make life even a little better for themselves and the people closest to them was to become tools of the Garleans. The Garleans had set up a perfect system to break the Alamegans, one where they can make the people turn on each other to make it even harder for them to ever fight back. It worked, and the effects can still be seen even though Alamigo is free, especially in the people who joined the Empire. Ragnfrid doesn't want this new Alamigo to stay divided, so he formed the Silver Griffins to help the outcasts rejoin society, and Arnvald is a member of the group. He's been acting as a middleman to help make it easier for the former Imperial sympathizers and the other Alamegans to work together. He's good at the job, but the families of the former Skulls have not been willing to work with the Griffins, and they're the ones who've been turning into blasphemies. Rauban can understand why. Being related to traitors who tortured and murdered their own people would put someone in a very negative headspace, which isn't good when being depressed turns you into a not-so-random monster. Arnvald's echo let him see the memories of one of the men who had turned, and it let him know a lot about him. The man had joined the Empire because he had a son, and it was the best way to get what he needed to take care of him. He knew that the people wouldn't like it, but keeping his son fed was more important to him, so he took the abuse and kept on living. His son saw how the people treated his dad, but he couldn't do anything about it until he got older. Once he was old enough, he joined the Skulls to try to return the favor and make his dad's life better. And because the Alamegans hadn't exactly treated his dad well, he followed every brutal order without caring. He died during the revolution, and his dad blamed himself, thinking that he caused his son to end up dead, and those feelings made him transform. His story is not all that unique among the Skull's members, which means a lot more of their family members are at risk of turning if nothing changes soon. Since he's half Garlean and grew up in Alamigo, Arenval knows how they feel firsthand. People treated him like crap too, but that's not a good reason to just roll over and die. He thinks he can make the people see that, and Raban is perfectly fine with letting his group try, since anything that can stop the transformations is a plus. He wants you to help them when you can, but he's pretty sure that more blasphemies are going to pop up, so your healing skills are going to be needed again soon. In other words, you're about to be very busy. Raban has his men searching for the blasphemy that started all of the chaos, but so far they haven't seen the thing. There have been quite a few smaller creatures popping up all around Garabania, so his troops have been dealing with them too. To make a not so good situation a little worse, there have been rumors spreading that the new monsters were the Skull's relatives, and that's not necessarily the case. But if people think the Skull's families are turning, they may decide to murder them before they become less squishy, which will make them turn and everything will get worse. These new incidents haven't exactly helped the Silver Griffins with their own mission, so Raban wants you to go see if you can help the situation a bit. But he's not going to send you out alone. He's partnering you up with Fordola, who's about as happy about this arrangement as you might expect, which is a nice way to say that she hates it. She doesn't like being constantly under guard or wearing the collar that can be used to put her down in a very unpleasant way. But she did agree to it as part of her punishment for fighting against Alamigo. Plus, Arenval points out that having you in her group won't exactly be a bad thing, since she will probably need a healer. You're both being sent to the Griffin's base in Alagana, where a few relatives of the Skull said they'd be willing to talk. Raban wants the two of you there to keep them safe from either blasphemies or rowdy villagers. That's a job Fordola is more than happy to do, considering her past associations. While she always acts tough and for the most part is not really an act, she is in a worse spot than you might think. She's at more of a risk of turning into a blasphemy than most people, because she has even less control of her echo than you do, and the different visions that she gets on top of her own trauma will not exactly help her mental state that much. So Arenval wants you to try to help her as much as you can, since he can't watch her back anymore. Ragnfrid is happy to see you, but he's not all that excited to see Fordola, even though he still remembers how she helped everyone. She doesn't care how he feels about her. She just wants to know what the mission is so she can get it over with. One of the families that the Griffins were trying to help disappeared. They all lived in the same house, but when one of the Griffins went to check on them, the house had been torn apart by monsters. There were no bodies, so he figures that the family turned, so he wants the two of you to hunt them down before they can hurt anyone. Between the two of you, putting down the creatures isn't all that difficult, and they had a few things with them that proved that they were in fact the family that had gone missing. It's good that you managed to stop them before they could do any damage, but when you get back to the camp, a man whose brother had been a Skull sees Fordola. He freaks out and transforms right in the middle of everyone. As he changes, Fordola's echo hits her, and the experience is way more painful than yours. The new monster attacks a child, but Fordola takes the hit to save her. Even though the child's mother watches Fordola save her kid's life, she doesn't want the woman anywhere near her daughter. Fordola doesn't argue, she just leaves, and you go after her so you can do your job and heal her because she needs it. She argues with you because that's what she does, but she finally lets you heal her. The way the woman acted toward her reminded her that she can never undo all of the things that she's done, and there's no way that anyone will ever forgive her for joining the Garleans and killing so many of her own people. She hadn't liked what she was doing, but it did become easier after a while. Easier to do, but not easier to live with. And while she tries to act like it doesn't bother her all that much, the way she really feels about her situation reveals itself when she starts to turn into a blasphemy. The Warrior of Light helps her calm down and stop the transformation, but she lets you know that what pushed her over the edge was seeing the man's memories just as he turned. She was the entire reason that he had turned, because she had been the one to kill his brother. She thinks she's finally gotten herself under control, but in a very un-Fordola-like moment, she asks you to wait with her for a while, something you're more than willing to do. While you wait, she actually opens up to you a bit, sharing some thoughts that she's never told to anyone else. She wonders if she had been born somewhere else during a different time, would she have still turned into a monster? Was she just a defective person, or was she a victim of circumstance? Either way, she thinks the world would have been better off if she had never been born, because what she did with her life was make everyone else miserable, even her own friends. While she can't make everything right, the one thing she can do is kill the blasphemy, which is only right since she is partially responsible for creating the thing. So the two of you head back to Raban to see if they've had any luck tracking it down. After you let Raban know that Fordola nearly transformed, he makes a note of it so he can watch out for her. But other than that, he's pretty happy about how your mission went, even though it did prove that the people who have a connection to the Skulls have a higher risk of turning into blasphemies. Not all of their family members stayed in Alamigo. Some of them move to Ul'dah. It goes without saying that if they turn in Ul'dah, things will be very bad, so Ra-Ban plans on working with the Immortal Flames to find the refugees and help them out. He also plans on heading over there to meet with the Sultana, and once he's prepped, he wants you to come with him. It doesn't take long for the Sultana to set up a time to meet with him. His people still haven't found the blasphemy, but whatever it's doing likely matches the types of things that the man had done in life, so once someone figures out who he was, that'll make it easier to track him down. Since the skulls are the ones who are at the most risk of turning, and that includes Fordola, Arenvald thinks keeping her out of things for a while might be for the best, but it's highly unlikely that she would agree to that. Arenvald wishes that he could still walk so he could take over her duties until things were sorted out, but even if his legs had worked, he wouldn't have had time for that, since Ra-Ban wants him to come with him to meet the Sultana. He thinks talking to her will help both of them out in the future. Arenvald doubts that he has anything that he can teach to someone as powerful as Nanamo, but he's still willing to go with you to Ul'dah. When you get there, Papashan lets you all know that Nanamo has decided to do her whole sneak around the city thing as her alter ego. And of course she didn't tell Papashan about her little trip, which is dumb because Ul'dah is dangerous, and no matter how she disguises herself, it wouldn't be hard for someone to pick her out of a crowd. Granted, Lalafell only have like 4 different faces, so she could blend in a little bit. Either way, there are blasphemies and other things running around too, so you need to find her before something eats her. Papashan's pretty sure that's why Nanamo is walking around the city in the first place. She wants to see how her people are doing. That's noble, but it's dangerous, and since Ra-Ban has had to track her down quite a bit, he takes the Warrior of Light and goes on a hunt for her. He's not as good at finding the woman as he claimed, but after a little bit of hunting around, you find her in Pearl Lane, which is by far the most dangerous part of the city. Nanamo's surprised to see the two of you since the time for your meeting hasn't exactly popped up yet. But she's not mad that Ra-Ban had immediately started acting like her bodyguard again when he thought she was in trouble. Granted, she's not about to ride on his shoulder again because that was always weird. She had wanted to see how the people were doing so she could be better prepared for your meeting, and she managed to finish her information gathering before the two of you showed up. So after she changes into her normal clothes, you all get your meeting underway. Arenvald's uncomfortable meeting royalty since he's just a soldier, but the fact that he came with Ra-Ban makes him rank pretty high as far as Nanamo's concerned. And since he's been working with people in need in Alamigo, that scored him some points too. She's been told a bit about why you're there, and she wants any information you have about the blasphemy in Alamigo and its victims. After Ra-Ban tells her everything, she understands why you need to find all of the Skulls members' families who came to the city. She's been helping the Alamigan refugees in her city already, so giving them a little bit of extra attention won't be too hard, especially if it keeps a blasphemy from showing up inside of her walls. As for the people who have the worst chance of turning, she thinks the best way to help them is to talk to them. Everyone's experienced different trials in life, but with a little willpower and support, just about anything can be overcome. And since she's gotten better at working with the people who control most of the money in the city, she has the support to help keep the Alamegans in the city from feeling emotionally drained. Trying to forget about their past isn't the solution. What the people have to do is come to terms with what they've done and move forward. And Arenvald thinks that the best way to do that is to hold a remembrance ceremony for everyone who died during the war. It doesn't matter what side they fought for. Everyone will get to be put to rest, and every Alamegan will get to celebrate their fallen loved ones and move on. Ra-Ban thinks it's a nice thought, but it's not something that'll be easy to pull off. Bringing people together who don't trust each other is not the best way to promote peace. It could end very bad, but it's worth a shot as long as the people aren't forced to show up. As long as it's optional, he'll give Arenvald all of the support he needs to get everything underway. He appreciates that, but he wants to get a bit of advice from Nanamo on how to deal with people since he still doesn't think he's good at it. She's okay with that because she wanted to talk to him too. So since you're no longer needed, you and Ra-Ban head back to Alamigo. While Arenvald is planning his not-so-little event, there's still a lot of monsters and missing Skulls family members to find. The good news is Ragnfrid has gotten the general public to help with tracking them down. Even though they still hate the Skulls, they've gotten a little better when it comes to working with the Silver Griffins and their mission. As for Arenvald's ceremony, he plans on setting up a meeting between the different community leaders to iron out all the details, and he wants you to help hand out some invitations. He only needs you to deliver 2 of them, one to Miraz Noon and the other to Sarisha. He expects them both to refuse to show up since they had a lot of bad run-ins with the Skulls, but he hopes that they'll realize that putting the past behind them is the best thing for everyone, and he thinks that you being the one to bring the letters will help them lean more in favor of showing up. He wasn't wrong about that. Even though Miraz and Sarisha of the Anata do agree to show up to the meeting, that doesn't mean they're agreeing to do the event, but they will at least hear Arenvald out. Of course, he wants you there for that too, so you head to the royal palace for a meeting with a lot of very unhappy people. The people do not like the idea of honoring traitors at their remembrance ceremony, but after a nice speech from Rauban and Arnvald, they realize that everyone did stuff that they didn't like to survive under the Empire. And while what the Skulls did was worse by a pretty large margin, holding grudges won't help them or their nation recover. Since they all want Alamigo to thrive, they agree to do the ceremony. With them agreeing to attend, the rest of the people will be easy to get on board, which will help keep more people from turning. The day is turning out to be better than they expected, because the woman whose daughter Fordola saved realized that she had been kind of a jerk, and wants to thank Fordola personally. Rauban is a little unsure about whether he should let her go or not, because Fordola can be a bit of a, let's just say, not a nice person. But he's gonna think about it and he'll let you know what happens. When you get back, you find out that something went bad. Fordola went to meet with the women so they could thank her, but when she came back, she was acting really weird. Then not long after that, she ran away. Rauban's gone to Alagana with Arnvald to see if the pair have any idea about where the woman might have run off to, so you go over there to meet him. When you find him, he's both upset and a little confused. Fordola's been doing a lot to earn his trust, so her running off is strange, especially since she still has on a collar that he can use to kill her with a single command. She knows this, which makes him think that she has to have a good reason for running off. That's why he decided to talk to Clarel and her daughter Lily before deciding to send Fordola to the upper room. The conversation they'd had with Fordola went pretty much like most conversations with the woman go. They talked and she just stared at them like she wanted to stab them. But it got weird when Clarel had mentioned the blasphemy. Fordola had looked at Lily, then started screaming like Lalafell were dancing on her brain, which means her messed up echo had shown her some of Lily's memories. Arnvald wants to know if the girl can remember what she was thinking about when Fordola had freaked out, and she actually does. She was thinking about a man who she had seen in the city. Turns out Lily had come face to face with the man who had turned into the original blasphemy, which means Fordola had seen him too since she saw the girl's memories, and she recognized him. She had said the name Charlotte while she was having her vision, but neither Rauban or Arnvald know the guy. But you have a name that Ragnfrid and his Silver Griffins probably know, so you go hunt the man down. Charlotte was a name that the old man had heard recently. He had an older brother named Ansford who was in the Skulls, and he's got an uncle that's been trying to track him down. The man is working in the Sleeping Stones at that moment, and since Ragnfrid was about to take the man something to eat, you all head off to see if he knows how Fordola and Charlotte are connected. It turns out that Charlotte knew Fordola very well. His family had sworn to Garlemald so they could get citizenship, and that had made the other Alamegans hate them so their lives sucked. That made Ansford and most of their friend group join the army and become the Skulls. That little friend group included Fordola. Charlotte hadn't joined up, but he always felt bad about not being able to have his friends back. He blamed himself for not being able to save them, and that's likely what made him turn, even though none of you tell his uncle what happened to him. There's no point in messing up the man's day, but at least now you know where Fordola went. Her friend turned into a monster, and she feels like it's her job to put him down, or die trying. Rauban's actually worried about Fordola, so along with sending some of his soldiers to help the Silver Griffins find out more about Charlotte's background, he's got Monago and her people out trying to track the woman down so they can help her with her hunt. Hopefully they find her before she decides to go one-on-one with the blasphemy. With so many people out looking, it doesn't take long for Rauban to get a call from Monago saying that she's found Fordola and the creature. Fordola calls you over the link pearl and she tells you where they are because she has a favor to ask. She wants you to help her put the creature down. Charlotte was a good man and he never wanted to hurt anyone, so leaving him like he is would be cruel. The only problem is she doesn't think she can beat him alone, so she needs your help. Of course you're gonna come, but during the call the blasphemy starts moving, so you and Rauban book it over there. Monago and the others hold the thing off until you get there, but some of her people are hurt, so she pulls back and lets the two of you join Fordola, which is the exact moment when the echo takes over. It shows you the day when Fordola and her friends decided to sign up and join the military. All of them except for Charlotte. Even though he was a pacifist, none of his friends made fun of him, but he did blame himself for being weak, and he blamed himself even more for outliving almost all of the others. Fordola doesn't blame him for being a coward, and she honestly thinks she's more of a coward than he is, because while he was a pacifist and refused to fight, she fully embraced it and became the butcher. Those thoughts cause her to start turning again, but Monago calls out to her, snapping her out of it, which is good because the blasphemy was a split second away from killing her before she could even become one. Monago tells Fordola that she doesn't get to give up and turn. Even though she's done horrible things, if she lives, she can make up for them. If she dies now, she'll always be nothing more than the butcher. It's obvious that she doesn't want that, and it becomes even more clear when Arnval shows up. Even though he can't fight, he still plans on being there to support his friend in any way that he can. While it's true that Fordola did do some terrible things, Raban tells her that the Alamegans did play a part in who she and her friends became, and they'll start fixing that by putting down Charlotte. Facing off against the Warrior of Light, the Bull of Alamigo, and Fordola, the Blasphemy never had a chance. But when Charlotte dies, the Echo lets Fordola see him and her other friends return to the life stream. She thanks you for your help, something that is really out of character for her, and after she gives Arnval a high five, you all head back to the city where you're greeted like heroes. And this time, when Lily goes to talk to Fordola, her mother doesn't try to stop her. It turns out the casualties were pretty low during this whole ordeal. Charlotte, being non-violent, seemed to stick even after he transformed, and he never attacked any settlements. Even though he changed in the middle of a crowded area, the people who were hurt only got minor injuries. The only time he had even shown himself was when he was going to the spot where his brother had died. All of this had happened because the Alamegans hadn't accepted them. That's why Arnval's memorial ceremony is so important. It'll give the people they excluded in life the chance to be included in death. Ragnfrid wants to know if Fordola's gonna be there, but since she hasn't been ordered to, she can't. Since she's proven herself, Raban plans on getting her some more freedoms, including getting that collar off of her, and even Ragnfrid thinks that she deserves it. And those few words from him finally makes the woman smile. With the mission completed, the Warrior of Light heads back to Razad Han to let them know that the creature is dead, and to get prepared for whatever comes next. A representative from Gridania is out in Razad Han looking for strong fighters to help deal with the blasphemy that's attacking people out in the 12's Wood. They haven't been able to even track the thing down, let alone kill it, so they need a little bit of help. Considering how good the Warrior of Light is in battle, she would be the perfect person to join the fight. And since she has a serious connection to the people of Gridania, she makes her way over to see what she can do to help out. Connie Senna's happy to see that you were the one that answered the call. But since she knows you definitely have other random quests to complete, she immediately gets you up to speed on the current situation. Not long after the blasphemy started to appear in Thavnir, the Gridanians got a report saying that a man whose identity they didn't know transformed into one of the monsters in the middle of the road outside of the city. The thing looked like something out of an old legend, so the people decided to name it Gleipnir. Since it first appeared, it's been randomly popping out of the forest and attacking people, then it disappears again before anyone can fight it. And since it's not leaving any tracks at all, they haven't been able to find it. The elementals want the thing out of the forest, but Connie isn't sure how easy it'll be to kill the thing even if her people manage to find it. Mainly because everyone who survived one of Gleipnir's attacks have been poisoned, and no matter how small the cut is that the people get, the poison doesn't take long to kill them. The symptoms that the people are getting reminds Connie Senna of the plague called the Creeping Death that had spread through the 12's Wood a very long time ago. The people who got it would get a rash on their skin that looked like a chain. Then they'd die horribly. They had made a cure out of glim shrooms, but by the time they had made it, a lot of people had died. The people of Gridania still remember how bad it was, and if people keep popping up with those symptoms, it will likely cause a panic. So you need to all figure out where the blasphemy is, and whether or not the poison that is spreading is actually the Creeping Death. The problem is, none of their magic has done anything to even slow the spread of the poison, so fighting the thing would guarantee that a lot of people would die. Unfortunately, you might not have a choice in the matter, because a call comes in saying that Gleipnir just attacked someone out in the North Shroud. He was gone before the Wood Dwellers could get there, but the man he attacked is still alive for now. They're taking him to Falgord Float, so the Warrior of Light and Connie Senna head over there to see if there's anything that can be done for the injured man, and to see if the blasphemy is still in the area. The healer that works in the area has already fixed the man's wounds, but he couldn't do anything about the poison. From the marks he saw on the man's body, he's pretty sure that it really is the Creeping Death. Connie's gonna give healing it a try, but before she can do that, someone starts screaming about a swarm of Chigos coming from the east. Those bugs were known for carrying the plague, so them popping up along with the infected man has a good chance of pushing the people over the edge, so Connie sends you off to deal with them while she tries to save the dying man. You see the things attacking a merchant who you saved before he gets chewed on, and it's a good thing that you did because he's actually carrying a cure for the plague with him. He had heard about the sick man and figured that he could both help out and make a little bit of money at the same time. Since the sick guy is a heartbeat away from taking a trip to the upper room, the merchant figures that you have a better chance of getting there than he does, so he gives you the medicine for free so you can take it to the guy. You bring the medicine to Connie, but even though it works fast on the actual creeping death, the medicine does less than nothing on whatever the man actually has, and he dies screaming. That makes this situation far worse, because now it's guaranteed that anyone who gets so much as a scratch from the blasphemy will die. The one thing that Connie Senna is sure of after seeing how fast the poison works is that no regular creature would be able to carry and spread a poison so strong, so the pests that would normally spread a plague aren't really anything to be afraid of. That little bit of knowledge should help keep the people from panicking and turning into monsters themselves. But that still leaves the dangerous and difficult task of tracking down Gleipnir and dealing with the monster without dying. The Wood Dwellers have been searching everywhere for the thing, and the best info that they have says the beast is somewhere in the South Shroud. Since it's not likely to just stay there, you all head out there right away to try and catch it. Since Connie's sister Raya is constantly hanging around the area, the elder Seed Seer figures that her sister might have seen something useful. Raya knows all about Gleipnir since the thing has been killing so many people in the area that it's made them all scared to leave Camp Tranquil. They've even gone so far as to accuse her of neglecting her duties and letting the monster do what it wants when she's supposed to be protecting the people. She wants to see if the elementals can help, but they're not as strong as they used to be, and every time Connie talks to them, they don't sound like they're in the best mental state. They likely won't be again until Gleipnir is gone, which makes them useless when it comes to dealing with the thing, which kinda seems par for the course. The elementals seem to always be in distress when their power could be useful. Raya is pretty sure you'll need them to deal with Gleipnir, so she figures she'll grab her brother and try to calm them down so they can help, while Connie lets the people of Camp Tranquil know that the Seed Seers are working on solving the problem, with the help of the Warrior of Light, of course. Some of the Gridanians were actually debating leaving the area and moving to Ul'dah, which means they've clearly never been to the place, because dealing with a blasphemy is far easier and safer than being a refugee in Ul'dah, or a citizen for that matter. But Connie does manage to convince some of the people to stay calm for long enough to let her handle the situation. Unfortunately, the words of a leader who interacts with her people almost as much as the elementals do aren't all that comforting to the ones who've actually seen Gleipnir and his victims firsthand. The monster had attacked a group of civilians on the road, and while they did get away, one of them got cut. Connie tries to heal one of them, but it doesn't work, and when the man realizes that he's gonna die, he turns into a monster. Seeing him turn makes his friend turn too, and you're forced to put both of them down. Having people die right in front of them right after Connie tried to tell the people that everything would be okay doesn't really do all that much when it comes to lifting spirits, which means more people are now at risk of transforming. Even worse, there are still no signs of Gleipnir, so Connie decides to try to get some help from the elementals after all by talking to the Great One. But calling on him is not as simple as just dialing his number, so she heads off to get what she needs for the ritual while you head back to the city. While she's working on that, things get worse. Gleipnir starts attacking more and more people, which is making more people scared, which causes more of them to turn into blasphemies. To make matters worse, a call comes in saying that the beast is in the middle of a fight with some wood dwellers near the guardian tree where the Great One sleeps. If it destroys the tree, that will make getting help from the elementals all but impossible, so you race off to see what you can do. By the time you get there, the soldiers have already turned into monsters, and you're forced to put them down before you can make your way to the guardian tree. The tree hasn't been damaged, so Connie gets started trying to chat with the Great One. It works, but the thing is so scared that contacting it actually hurts Connie. It wants her to get rid of the monster because it's too scared to do anything while it's there, which means the elementals are downright useless. Like, what's the point of having them around if anytime a threat shows up, they're too scared to actually help people deal with it? To make the bad day even worse, Gleipnir shows up in person and you finally get to see the monster. The thing is a behemoth with some extra steps, which makes me wonder, how did anyone get just a scratch from the thing? Any attack at all from it would probably remove a body part. Gleipnir charges at the tree, and Connie, proving that she's not nearly as useless as some people might think, puts up a shield to hold off the giant monster. It overpowers her, breaking through the shield and knocking her unconscious, which forces the Warrior of Light to step in to fight it. And because I think your abilities are secretly trying to kill you, the Echo takes over and shows you a vision. You see Asumi Yan telling two young Pajal about their purpose of acting as mediators between the elementals and the races of man. The most skilled Pajal take on the title of Seed Seer and work to protect and guide Gridania through the good times and the bad. Asumi doesn't know which of the two children would be worthy of taking that role, but he thinks they're both capable. However, the girl doesn't want to be a Seed Seer at all. She doesn't even want to be a Pajal. Having the horns would kind of suck, but I don't know too many people who would complain about aging as slowly as they do. Being normal is highly overrated, but that's what the girl wants. The boy, not so much. He likes his horns, and he looks at being a Pajal as a gift that he can use to help people, and he thinks that the little girl, who's actually a young Connie Senna, should look at it the same way. She hadn't thought of it like that since it was forced on her, but she's willing to try. Now this vision must have went by fast, because when the Warrior of Light wakes up, Gleipnir still hasn't attacked. He sees Connie lying on the ground and he recognizes her, which makes him leave because he's obviously the boy that was with her in the vision. She was knocked out when her shield broke, but she wasn't hit by Gleipnir's poison, so a healer should be able to get her back on her feet. Once she's back on her feet and able to talk, maybe finding out who Gleipnir actually is will be enough to help you figure out how to deal with him. Once Connie Senna's recovered enough to receive visitors, the Warrior of Light and one of her personal guards head to the Conjurers Guild to talk to her about Gleipnir. Fortunately, she didn't get poisoned when Gleipnir broke her shield because she would have been dead if she had, and she's ready to go back to hunting for the creature. While she might think she's ready to get back out there, Isumi's not gonna let her run off when she's barely gotten back on her feet. She might not be injured on the outside anymore, but there's no way to know if her little chat with the Great One did anything to her. The thing is made of pure ether, and her feeling its fear the way that she did could have had all types of weird side effects. She understands that, but Gleipnir has to be dealt with, and she can't do that while she's being kept in a hospital bed. She seems to keep forgetting that she has help, but Isumi has no problem volunteering you to do the heavy lifting. After that last run-in with Gleipnir, Connie Senna's pretty sure that you won't be able to beat the monster without some help from the Great One. And even though it may not seem like it, he has a lot of power. During the 7th Umbral Calamity, the Great One created a barrier called the Ermin Hedge that protected the 12's Wood from most of the damage. Connie figures that if they could get a bit of the Great One's power, it'll be able to shield you all from Gleipnir's poison, which means you'll only have to deal with its giant fangs, claws, muscles, horns, and everything else that makes it deadly. But the rapid death-producing incurable poison is by far the worst threat that the thing has, so she figures that appeasing the elementals is the best path to take. That means you'll have to stop the elementals from being so afraid of Gleipnir that they can't do anything. That'll probably require you figuring out why the blasphemy seems to have such a strong desire to see the Great One dead. Connie's been thinking about that too, and considering the fact that blasphemies tend to hold on to some thoughts and feelings they had while they were alive, figuring out who Gleipnir is may lead to those answers. Fortunately, since you had a vision of Gleipnir's past and Connie was in it, once you tell her the particulars of it, she thinks she may know who the blasphemy used to be. Isumi knows too since he trained both Connie Senna and her counterpart Iasura Supin. Unlike Connie, Iasura never knew his family and devoted every waking moment to becoming the perfect Pajal. That made him a far better student than Connie since while he studied, she spent more time sneaking off and doing her own thing. She hated being isolated from regular people, and she made it a point to complain about it every chance she got. She would have never made it through her training without the support of Iasura. She had expected them both to become seed seers together, but one day when they were gathering herbs for Isumi, a strange man showed up and asked them to take him to the guardian tree. They didn't have the authority to take anyone to the tree, and the man was a bit weird, so Connie told him no, but Iasura took him anyway. Connie of course went and told Isumi, and the two of them headed to the tree where they found the strange man dead and Iasura unconscious. When the young Pajal finally woke up, he was able to tell Connie and Isumi what had happened. The weird man was an adventurer who had wanted fame and fortune like most of them do, and he had tried to take a branch off of the guardian tree. That got him killed, and as punishment for bringing the man there in the first place, the Great One took Iasura's horns. Without them, he was no longer a Pajal, and Izumi was forced to kick him out. After that, he never heard from the boy again. He had tried to find out what happened to him, but he couldn't, even though it seems like he had stayed in the 12's Wood. Even though he had made a mistake, his one goal had been to help the people of the Wood, so even though he couldn't train to be a seed seer anymore, he would have just found another way to help the people. The question is, what could have made him turn into Gleipnir? The last thing he had told Connie before they went their separate ways was that he was going to try to find a way to get forgiveness from the Great One, and he figured that the Mughals could help him. They've been in the 12's Wood longer than just about anyone else, so if anyone knows the inner workings of the minds of the elementals, it would be them. That means you have to go and talk to the slightly annoying fuzzballs to see if they know anything about Iasura that you can use, or if they know how to calm the Great One down enough so he can help you. The Mughals know you well since you've beaten them up a time or two over the years, but you've helped them enough to make them be more than willing to talk to you. As luck would have it, the Mughals were already in the process of trying to figure out how to calm the elementals, since they want the blasphemy gone too. It's been making life a little bit uncomfortable for them too, and they're not exactly happy about that. Raya-O told them that the first thing that they need to do is get rid of any corruption that they find in the forest so the elementals can have less stuff to worry about. The good news is the Mughals have a lot of hands to throw at any problems, since the ones who have been tempered by good King Mogulmog have been cured, and they have no desire to summon the irritating primal again. And since you're there working on the same issue, you decide to help them do some cleansing. What should be an easy job gets a little bit complicated when one of the members of the Mosguard realizes that every time he clears up an area, twice as many corrupted sections appear to replace it. With everything going on in the forest, the elementals are having a hard time remembering how to heal it. But one of the Mughals thinks they can remind them how to do it by performing one of their ancient rituals called the friending. The name is terrible, which makes sense once you find out that Coop just made it up because he couldn't remember what it was actually called. He does at least remember how to do it, so there's that. The ritual was first performed before Gridania became the nation that it is today. The founders knew that if they wanted to make a real home in the Twelveswood, they'd have to ask the elementals for permission. So a mage got rid of some of the spots that were full of corrupted ether, planted a few small trees in the spots, and prayed over them to show the forest elementals that they weren't moving in to try to bulldoze the place to make a mall. The elementals liked the gesture so much that they gave the people the right to build in the wood, and they even blessed them. That's why even to this day, every time a Gridanian cuts down a tree, they plant another one. So the Mughals figured that doing the same ritual would help soothe the elementals' emotions. The mage who first came up with the ritual was Joran, the father of the very first Pajal. That's what the elemental's blessing had done, and from then on they would bless a few here by turning them into Pajal and working closely with them. And since the elementals liked them, all of the people of the Twelveswood had a great respect for the Pajal. Once they hear that Gleipnir is likely a former Pajal who had lost the blessing all because of a bad decision he made as a child, the Mughals feel a little bad for him. But with what they know about the blasphemy's poison having a stronger effect on hearers makes sense. It's attacking the people who were blessed by the Twelveswood, the very same people who have something that he regrets losing. That also explains why the elementals are so scared. Gleipnir isn't only after them, it's after the people they care about. That means they need to be pushed to act faster, so you and the Mughals head off to do some of the hardest work imaginable, landscaping. Since Gleipnir hasn't been seen in a while, that gives the Mughals time to gather up the plants that you need. Since the Mughals have gathered all of the plants that you'll need for the ritual that'll hopefully get the elementals up and moving again, they're ready for the Warrior of Light to join them and get things started. Since this mission involves healing the forest, Connie Senna wants to come with you. Izumi finally agreed to let her leave the city, mainly because she wouldn't stop annoying him. Having her there would really help the process, so the Mughals are perfectly fine with her joining the group. Connie can sense the areas where the corruption is the strongest, so you all head to Green Tier to get things started. Once the Warrior of Light does her thing and murders the corrupted critters, Connie purifies the area and leads you all to the next spot where you repeat the process. When you finish a corruption hunting, tree planting scavenger hunt, Connie can sense that the forest has gotten better, but she won't know if what you've done is enough until she goes to the Guardian Tree. Some people see you all, and they're curious about what the Elder Seed Seer is doing, so she tells them that she's planting trees and making offerings to help the elementals. While that seems like an important thing to do to her, the people of Gridania are more worried about the people themselves than they are about the elementals. And they're not happy that the woman who's supposed to be leading them spends more time worried about nature than she is with dealing with the threats that are facing the actual people, mainly Gleipnir. What the people don't realize is that Connie's trying to help the elementals so they can help her deal with the monster and save the people. While that may be true, the blasphemy is only the most recent issue that the general public has. They've been dealing with problems constantly, yet the Seed Seers spend more time working with the elementals than they do with them. Not all that long ago, someone had caught the Creeping Death, the real Creeping Death, not the one that Gleipnir's been giving, and the supposed antidote didn't work. Everyone was sad when the woman died, but her husband Supin took it the hardest. Not long after that, Gleipnir showed up. Hearing that the man was called Supin makes Connie think that they were talking about Iasura, but the people say Supin wasn't this guy's real name. The only person who called him that was his wife. They didn't know why, but after a while the name stuck. The man had been a loner who would show up from time to time, but after he met his wife he became more social. The woman had always been sickly, which is why the medicine couldn't help her with the Creeping Death. It also explains what made Iasura turn into Gleipnir, and this little incident showed Connie that she's going to have to spend more time focusing on the woes of the people than just focusing on the elementals. But she'll have to worry about that after you all deal with Gleipnir. She fully understands why the monster is so focused on destroying the elementals. Had Iasura still been a Pajal, he would have been able to save his wife. Since the elementals took that from him, he would have been more than a little angry with them, which would explain a whole lot. Now that you all know why this is happening, it's time to put an end to it, but first you have to talk to the Great One, and since you've cleansed the forest, it's time to head to the Guardian Tree. With what you've all done, the Great One's actually calmed down enough to speak through Connie, but he does that to say that he still doesn't have the power to share with the people. But when more people from around the area show up to ask for help, he sees that the people of Gridania haven't broken their covenant with the elementals, so he agrees to give what power he can. He gives the people branches off of the great tree that Connie sends them to link with the oldest trees in the area. That should allow the Great One to block Gleipnir's poison. The blasphemy will definitely not just let that happen, so she wants the people to be careful. There's a bit more to the process than just carrying the branches around, but Connie has to deal with that part with the Seed Seer Council. So while the people do the planning and Connie gets ready for the final spell, the Warrior of Light gets her mind ready for the upcoming battle with Gleipnir. Once everyone has gotten all of the branches in place, Connie is ready to use the Great One's power and summon the Ermin Hedge. He had told her how to do it when he was speaking through her, and since the spell was strong enough to protect the 12's wood from a calamity, it should be more than enough to deal with the blasphemy's poison. To start the spell, there's one last branch that needs to be attached to the oldest tree in the wood, and Connie thinks that the Warrior of Light should do the honors. The tree's in the center of Gridania, so at least it's not that long of a trip, but you still have to climb the thing, which is likely the reason why Connie wanted you to do it instead of her. With the last branch in place, you all head back to the Guardian Tree so the Elder Seed Seer can cast the spell, and you all get ready for a fight, because Gleipnir is definitely going to show up once she starts. Before she can even start the spell, the beast shows up, which means you'll have to defend Connie for even longer. The monster's poison is extremely potent, but the Warrior of Light fights through it, giving Connie enough time to cast the spell which cures you of the poison and makes you all immune to it. That finally lets you all face the thing in a much more fair fight. One that you win, of course. With the blasphemy dead and everything starting to get back to normal, the Great One is finally back at peace. Now that this not so little adventure is done, Connie has to go back to her regular duties as Seed Seer, but her personal bodyguard thinks she should take a bit of a vacation after all she's been through. That's why it's a good thing that she's in charge and not him, because that would be a terrible idea and she knows it. While the Gleipnir problem has been dealt with, she realizes that as a leader and a Pajal, she has to be more involved with the people of Gridania and not be seen as some distant person who spends all of her time talking to trees. Granted, she would like to take some time to wander around the world like an adventurer, but for now that'll have to wait. That also means that you'll have to be the one to go to Razad Han and let them know that the mission was accomplished. But the Warrior of Light, considering the way things usually go for her, should have already known that she'd be the one to make the trip since no one cares if she gets to take a break or not. This concludes the story of Endwalker's Tank Role Quest. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.